Pastor, I believe that we have a very unique outreach strategy here at Elevation. And if you could just tell us where that came from, of the basis of how we will partner with existing missions versus create it ourselves. Like, what's the background behind that?
I was kind of hit with a lightning bolt on that one, and I'm sure we weren't the first ones to do it, but I had really been looking into how is our church going to reach our city, particularly the underserved, in what's traditionally called missions and outreach. And I'd been invited to a meeting, and I was real frustrated by it and was racking my brain. And I remember calling Chunks on the way back from Raleigh, North Carolina. I was driving, and I said, I think I got our outreach strategy. We don't create mission, we partner with it. And then I started to unpack it as much as I understood it at the time. And we ended up, over the next few weeks, developing our current strategy, which has served us extremely well up to this point, is that instead of trying to reinvent systems and structures and missions to serve people who are not being served, we want to provide the resources that we are very good at dispatching and then partner with existing mission in order to make an impact. And all I mean by that, if that sounds kind of heady or theoretical, is instead of starting a food pantry, who's feeding the most hungry people in town, and how can we help them? And so that's when Tanya Bendixson came on board with our outreach committee. I think it's our first and possibly only committee at the church. And it was like, hey, Tanya, who's the best organizations in town? You know everybody. She was a news anchor, and she came up with the best organizations, and we started with 5, I believe, and we hit them up and said, we want to do stuff with you, we want to do big stuff with you, and we've added since then. And now it's grown to be a very, very tightly managed, kind of systematized, evaluated, which organizations are the best, not just based on what one person might think, but over time, Tanya is still working with that, and a larger team that evaluates partners. And we've made a difference in our city with that model. I think that if you asked, and we have asked, the leaders of our city, both in the civic forum and as well as having just a general relationship with all the nonprofits in the area, they would all tell you that things are different in their organizations and in a lot of lives because we're here. And then we've been able to extrapolate that internationally. But the hedgehog concept of the whole thing, that's a term from, also another term from Jim Collins, Good to Great. The idea that seems to just continue to gain traction, and it seems very unique, is that we take the money that you would normally have to spend staffing outreach and creating square footage for outreach and all of that. We directly use that money and dispatch volunteers, so they're getting what we are really good at, which is generosity and people with the heart of a servant. And as we partner with organizations in that way, rather than kind of building our own little ghetto outreach model where we feed 50 people a week, we become the lifeblood of a lot of organizations that are feeding 50,000. And not only here locally, but they might be feeding internationally. And our selection process is key to that, and showing back to the church that, hey, we don't take, generally speaking, special missions offerings. We run the church in a way where we live off of, we do what we teach you to do. We live off of a lesser percent. We give it away ahead of time. We already budget for it. And then we show you what your giving is doing so that you'll continue to tithe to the storehouse. And it's been remarkable, and it's important that we show the people how their outreach dollars are being used and who we're partnering with, because then that motivates their generosity, enables us to help more people and push the mission forward. And up until this point, it's served us really well. But it started with this paradigm breaker for me. Don't create mission, partner with it. Yeah. Do what you're good at and let others do what they're good at, and then show the impact back to the church. Now we're getting better at capturing the impact, showing it back to the church in various formats, because then that lets them know they're making a difference. The average person who gives to the church needs to get feedback that you touched somebody's life this week. You fed somebody's kid. You bought somebody's shoes. Otherwise, they're just throwing tithe dollars into a black hole. And we've got to show them you are making a difference so that they can feel connected.